Okay, before we start, I should probably explain why I do this video here. People that know me for some time know that I sometimes upload presentations here, and it's the same today. So this is actually a presentation for my English class, and it's about the topic of intersectionality. You may ask what intersectionality actually is. This is the definition according to the Marriam-Webstern dictionary: the complex commutative way in which effects of multiple forms of discrimination, such as racism, sexism, and classism combine, overlap, or intersect, especially in the experiences of marginalized individuals or groups. Okay, let's be honest, nobody actually understands what it means. Let's make a definition people can actually understand. First, all humans are individuals. Second, every individual belongs to groups, which they were born into or choose themselves. Third, groups can have positive or negative effects. Fourth, members of oppressed groups experience oppression differently because they are individuals. And fifth, we should acknowledge this when talking about oppression in society. But let's talk about the actual history behind the term. Vox credits. No, not that Vox. That Vox credits Kimberlé Crenshaw with coining the term. In 1989 she used it as an example on how race, class, gender and other factors intersect and overlap with each other. The article describes how critical race theory originated as a response to a false academic consensus. Many openly racist laws had been repealed, but there still remains a racial wage gap, even though policies like the Civil Rights Act had been passed. Obviously, black people suffered from not having the same opportunities, even though they later gained rights. A paper Crenshaw published in 1989 showed examples of court cases where there was an intersection between both race and sex. Before 1964, General Motors, that's the automobile manufacturer, didn't hire black women, and in the 1970s there was a recession, where the company had seniority-based layoffs, and that led to all black women hired after 1964 being laid off. The judge ruled against adding black women as a protected class, as he believed it would open a Pandora's box. An intersectional worldview criticizes this, as black women face difficulties unique to them, because in this case they were both women and black, and this was therefore ignored. There also still were white women in the company, as well as black men, so the court wasn't able to prove any discrimination, although there were no more black women in the company, and you see, ignoring that was kinda cursed. Another example can be poor women. They face more sexual violence compared to women that are richer. Early feminists had connections to the abolition movement, and even later they had connections to black people. For example, in 1972 Victoria Woodhull ran as the first woman for president, and her running mate was black man Frederick Douglass, although he didn't acknowledge the nomination. However, pictures like this show the first wave of feminism, and it was dominated by white women. This was because they were angry that black men got to vote before them, and they even excluded black women from protests. Ironically, they were intersectional in other ways, talking about problems like education and poverty, which was connected to women. And today there are also people putting others down, just to look better themselves. One example would be the pick-me girl, that wants to get popular with boys, by saying she's not like the other girls. It should be noted that there are two factors that have a bigger impact. The first is class. I hope we can agree that richer people have a huge privilege. And the second one is community, things like friends, family and connections. And you know what is intersectional? Rich people usually also have better connections than poor people, so their children have better opportunities in life. However, intersectionality isn't about identity alone. Kimberlé Crenshaw talks about this.
A lot of people, particularly those who haven't followed demarginalizing from its initial iteration, often mistakenly think that intersectionality is only about multiple identities. I've got 3, you've got 6, the identity question goes on and on.
But about the context of oppression in society,
it's about how structures make certain identities the consequence of and the vehicle for vulnerability. So if you want to know how many intersections matter, you've got to look at the context. What's happening? What kind of discrimination is going on? What are the policies? What are the institutional structures that play a role in contributing to the exclusion of some people and not others?
However, believing in this doesn't mean you can't believe in yourself as well. You can be marginalized and still work for yourself and make your position better. I want to tell you a small story from my life, and I will use 2 different colors for it. I had my first PC when I was very young, so I grew up with technology, and my parents allowed me to watch YouTube when I was young. My middle class family renovated, and I made a deal to get a recording room. A retired friend of the family helped building the room, while I put in the idea for the design and some of the parts used. Meanwhile, I did something else. When I was around 15, I asked my parents for pocket money and got around 30 euros. I lived with both parents and grandparents, so I then went to my grandparents to ask them to give me pocket money as well, and they gave me 25 euros. I saved all my pocket money and didn't buy almost anything for the next 2 years. Then I bought a new mic. Maybe you already know what the colors mean. Cyan are the things I did myself, and green the ones I wasn't in control of, that I was lucky to grow up in a middle class family and to live with essentially 2 households, and so I was able to do YouTube since 2015. And yes, that's the actual description of my first channel. So I myself have never faced depression like other people do. Most other people don't have the ability to record in this room. However, I've still faced discrimination, because there's not only class and community. I actually have ASD, which is autism spectrum disorder, and I once was the only person that couldn't go on a trip to America with my school, and the teachers told me it was because they didn't know me. You can probably connect the dots, especially because I'm better in English than most that went on a trip, and while I think the teachers aren't bad essentially, what they did was obviously ableist. And now think about people that have both ASD and are poor. Both things create a new oppression for them, and it forms the oppression of a poor autistic person that is both poor and autistic. So we can say that every human is an individual, and every person has privileges, but is also oppressed, and we can understand this best by using intersectionality. We could spend hours on this topic, for example how intersectional feminists can talk about the oppression of men, because they believe not only women are part of the movement, and many other things. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like if you did so, and subscribe if you wanna see more of these videos.